As you could see there, okay, Chief Johnson Chukwu. Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director at Akari Asset Management, is here with me at the table. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Good morning, Chief Nancy.
Welcome again to the program. It's been a while physically on the show.
Yes, we're enjoying the benefit of technology.
Yes, we are. We are. Things are going to change, isn't it?
We're quite hopeful. We're quite optimistic.
Okay. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. The Naira redesign policy, I don't know if I've spoken to you about it since the policy announcement from the Central Bank of Nigeria. What do you think? Or perhaps we've even gone past that because the new Naira is out. Talk to me about your reading of the situation so far. You are from Lagos. You came in from Lagos today. Talk to me about the situation.
Well, the situation in Lagos is quite dire. A lot of people are queuing at the POS terminals trying to make withdrawals. Banks are not paying over the counter. But interestingly, somehow Lagosians seem to have accepted the reality of the current situation. We are not seeing the spikes you have seen in other places in Lagos, and given that Lagos accounts for more than 40% economic activity in the country. So if Lagos could be managed, then other areas could reasonably be managed. And I think what the banks need to do is try to provide as much as they have provided in Lagos. It doesn't need, I mean, in terms of proportion of demand to supply. Like I said, Lagos accounts for about more than 40% of Nigeria's economic activities, and to a reasonable extent, Lagos has remained calm. It's not smooth sailing, but I don't think the tensions I've seen in places like Owerri, I was in Owerri last weekend, or some other places, is that intense in Lagos. So somehow, Lagosians seem to have adjusted to the reality of the current situation. And also, I think people are beginning to accept that it's a short-term pain that we're going through, and that maybe in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time, we should see some level of improvement.
Okay. Quick things from what you said, and I hope that my brain can keep up with what you said to take up follow-up questions. You did actually say that banks are not paying over the counter. Are they not doing that now despite the order, the direction from the Central Bank of Nigeria to start paying over the counter 20,000 Naira to individuals?
I can say from personal experience, I actually asked one of my staff to go to the bank yesterday to make a withdrawal, and he spoke to about 3 or 4 banks, and they told him they are not still paying over the counter.
Over the counter?
Yes, I can tell that for sure, that the 3 or 4 banks we spoke with yesterday said they were not yet paying over the counter. And but I know the Central Bank has given instructions for the banks to pay over the counter. Probably those banks have not gotten enough supply, but there's also what they call lag effect in economic policies.
The banks have not gotten enough supply, but they're also supplying their ATMs. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're not paying over the counter, but they are loading their ATMs. And from what we have seen, at least from the videos recorded by even some staff of the CBN when they go out for monitoring, a lot of banks hoard millions of Naira in their vaults.
Okay, let me put it this way. The banks were initially directed to pay only through the ATMs. And what they did was mobilize their resources to load the ATMs. Because once the ATMs are not loaded, you're going to have difficulties paying people there. So, and again, as far as relates to over-the-counter payments, remember that the banks don't have an infinite amount of cash supply, new currency supply. So one of the things they must have done is to prioritize where the customers are really making contact. And I think the ATMs seem to be the areas where the customers are making their first set of contacts. But that does not excuse the fact that they are still reluctant to pay over the counter. But my summation of this thing is that some of the, like what you mentioned about banks trying to hoard new currencies, because they don't have enough supply. It's very simple. You can only hoard a product that is scarce. Nobody hoards a product that is in large supply, where supply outstrips demand. So clearly, this what we call unethical behavior, if you have to call it unethical behavior, is driven by the fact that there is not enough supply. But the reason why there's not enough supply is a different thing which we are going to go into in the course of our conversation. But in terms of, if we are dwelling only on the economics, there's clearly short supply of the new currencies. The motive behind that is what we have to interrogate and weigh the benefit of that motive against the cost or the difficulties we're going through.
Okay, let's take off from that. I get you, and I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying, because you're saying you would have a shortage of something if there's no adequate supply. About the motive around making...
I said you can only have hoarding,
yes,
when there's not enough supply.
Yes, I know. I heard you right. But how about the motive around what the banks are doing now? They will not be paying customers over the counter. Their ATMs are not loaded, but bank officials, Apex bank officials, go into the banks and they see new monies in their vaults. So yes, so what is the motive around profiteering? So the motive around, guys, let's make profits from this and let's hoard this to make profit from it.
Well, Nancy, let me tell you some basic...
I can decide that I want to make something scarce, even if it's well supplied.
Let me tell you something about some basic business nuggets. Whenever a product or a commodity is in short supply, then that product will find itself into a parallel market. And human beings are rational. Patriotism or ethics do not drive business. Profit motive drive business interest. So when you create a situation where demand is higher than supply, there will certainly be profiteering. So what we are seeing today is that the situation has created an incentive for unethical behavior, which is why maybe you go to a bank branch, an unethical head of operations or cash officer will have made an arrangement with maybe a big political heavyweight and say, look, if you bring me 10 million naira, I'll give you back 1 million naira. So the guy, because he has seen an incentive, his negative attributes comes to the fore. But what I'm trying to explain is that it doesn't excuse unethical behavior. But I'm saying certain situations create environments for unethical behavior. It doesn't excuse the unethical behavior, but we must recognize that, look, we have short supply of foreign exchange, local currencies, new new notes, and it has created a situation where some people who do not have strong moral fiber are behaving in an unethical manner. But one of the things I want us to focus on is these difficulties we are going through. Is it going to, in the medium to long term, create an environment that we can look back and say, okay, we went through these difficulties for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but we now have an environment in a country where economy is progressing, where people have employment, where there is no need for anybody to go to a banking hall to give for cash, where people earn income, have enough full employment. And that for me, because when I look back, I was among the earliest people that said, look, the currency redesign, and the limits to withdrawals were inherently political, and were designed to achieve an objective, and that objective is likely to, as much as possible, reduce the influence of money in the electoral process.
But Apex Bank didn't say so.
They don't have to say so. If they say so, they would have compromised their own neutrality. But clearly, I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see the sequence of policies that have come out of the central bank, and the fact that the central bank governor is clearly on the same bed with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And if you want to, if you catch your mind back, when the Minister of Finance said, look, she wasn't briefed, she wasn't aware of this, immediately the president weighed in. And the president has spoken more on this Naira redesign than he has spoken on any subject since he became president. So why do you think the president, who is known to speak, barely hardly speak on any issue, to have spoken, granted several interviews on this, intervene whenever he needed to intervene?
And he did the same thing when he was also a military.
Thank you.
Military,
so clearly,
president, head of state.
From the point the announcement was made, I said, look, clearly what we are looking at is that we've had successions of elections, and in almost all the elections, we have cried ourselves hawks, saying that the election had been compromised, not necessarily because the results are written, but also because people who have then become pauperized by the political leaders are given peanuts so that they can vote against their conscience, against national interest. And today, there's so much excitement about the electoral process. A lot of young people are excited, they want to go and vote. You could see the energy of people when they wanted to register to vote. You have seen the energy of people trying to collect their voter's card. And then, but we also know that in spite of that, there is a threat that since poverty has been weaponized, and people get handouts to compromise. I mean, if you look at a woman who has 4 children, who does not have an income, husband does not have a job, and the woman is given 10,000 naira to vote for any candidate, irrespective of who the candidate is, the woman must be a very strong personality with a strong moral fiber to reject that 10,000 naira and not vote for that person. So, but if you now, because of the need to have a sane electoral system, election, the federal government, particularly President Muhammadu Buhari, decided that, look, we're going to change the currency design, and we're going to limit withdrawals so that we constrain politicians who are bent on compromising the entire country from doing that. I think that's the premise that we have to look at it. For me, and I had said this earlier, immediately the announcement was made, I said, look, go look at this policy. Why would you change the color of your currency a few months to the election? Why is the deadline 31st of December? I mean, 31st of January. Why was the deadline 31st of January when the presidential election was going to be on 25th of February? Why not a few days after?
So is it that the reasons that the central bank gave were not strong, cogent reasons?
No.
That we've not changed our currency in a long time?
No, they are logical. They are logical reasons.
You understand? And the financial reasons surrounding it, counterfeiting, and all of that, they are not strong enough reasons, or the politicians just also took advantage of this. Okay, the Apex Bank is is chasing us. Why doing it at this time and all of that? Why not do it at this time?
Okay, let me tell you, Nancy.
And how is the market even reading it? Are you telling me what you're reading, or perhaps how the markets are also seeing this?
Okay, I'll take it from both parts. In the first place, the decision to redesign a currency is basically that of the central bank governor, with the consent of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The timing is the issue. It could have been done early last year. It could have been done middle of last year. It could have also have been done by March ending or April ending. But given the length of time the president had been in power, 8 years, and the timing, I mean, like I said, it's common logic that one can reasonably deduce that there is a political consideration. It doesn't negate the economic and social considerations. I can dwell on the economic and social considerations and make an overwhelming argument why this redesign should take place. But that will not explain the level of restrictions in withdrawals. The level of restrictions in withdrawals cannot be explained by the need to stop so much cash getting into the system that could enable those who want to compromise the electoral process to do that. And I give you an instance. Let's dwell on what the central bank governor has said, or what the issues that they talked about counterfeiting. The current notes, the old notes that are being phased out, have been around for quite some time. So if you have a crafty counterfeiter, a fraudster, they would have understudied all the security features, including those that are not visible to the eyes. And they can reasonably duplicate that. So there's a reason that why you could say, over this period of time, we need to change the design of our currency. But it doesn't explain the timing. You can also say that there is a lot of liquidity in the hands of nefarious people engaged in nefarious activities like kidnappers, like drug dealers, or people who are involved in other criminal activities. So if you redesign your currency, but remember you also created a window for those currencies to come back. And from what the central bank governor said, the first 2 weeks, about 1.9 trillion naira of the 2.7 trillion naira that was outside the banking system came back. So that money, 1.9 trillion naira came back, may also have included monies from kidnappers and drug dealers. So it does not address that in that. But limiting the amount of money that anybody can withdraw over the counter will make it difficult for anybody to withdraw 10 million naira and go and pay for ransom. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't see any kidnapper that will kidnap for ransom and ask you to transfer money to my account. Because once the payment goes through the banking system, it can be tracked and trapped. So by limiting the amount you will withdraw, you can also make it difficult for those who are using this money for criminal activities. But that can also have waited for after the election, or could have been done earlier than now. The one that is, which is why I had to make my deduction, is that the one that has made the time constraint, time limitations justifiable or explainable is that presidential election is going to be happen on the 25th of February. I was speaking with somebody called me on Saturday, I think on Friday, no, Saturday morning, and was telling me that his master, who is running for governorship in one of the states, went to campaign, and they came with 300 bags of rice. These bags of rice are just as small as my clenched fist.
The bags of rice?
Rice, with the picture of the candidate emblazoned on it. And that people were so jubilant that you need to see the way women, we are struggling to get those bags of rice. I felt like slapping if it was before me. I said, you guys have really pushed people to extreme poverty, and you are enticing them like dogs. And that's what the politicians have done to this country. They've destroyed the psyche of Nigerians. Nigeria has 33% unemployment, 45% youth unemployment, and you want to go and give them 10,000 naira to buy their vote for the next 8 years. So if that's, like the president said, look, he wants to bequeath to this country a free and fair election that is not compromised by money bags or by thuggery. So if you deny the criminal politicians, because that's what we should call them, the access to the liquidity to compromise the voters and also buy the brows of thugs, then we may end up with a clean, reasonable, free election. And whatever the outcome of the election, whoever we elect, we will know we have chosen who we are. Because like I've said, this election has turned to be a kind of proof of who we are. It's a referendum on who Nigerians are. So if we have choices and we make our choice, and our choice turns out to be wrong, because the choice is a collective choice. So whatever the majority chooses is the choice of Nigeria. So whatever choice we make, and we make it with the best of sense of responsibility without being induced or compromised, then we would have elected who we are, and we would have gotten the government we deserve.
How do you think that with this, the deadline, February 10 is just by the corner, February 17th is also by the corner, the central bank governor has come out to say, you can bring in your old notes, it doesn't stop. Of course, when he went to the National Assembly and met with the House of Representatives reps there, how do you think this will affect the election? Because some people are also saying, I don't have cash, there's no cash. It will affect voter turnout. Do you think so? Because some people will be like, okay, I don't have money, I'll stay in my house. I may need, I've heard different sorts of arguments.
Did you see the way I shifted when
you said
that?
Yes, I noticed that.
Okay, Nancy, let me tell you. The history of elections since I become of adult suffrage is that on election day, movement is restricted. It's
restricted, agreed.
Nobody enters bus or taxi to go anywhere.
You have to vote
People
close
vote
to you.
Near
a trekking distance.
Booth. So anybody who decides he's not going to vote never wanted to vote. So if you have been eating and suffering for the past 8 years and you have a golden chance to choose the right leader, and you are saying because you don't have 1,000 naira or 10,000 naira in your pocket, you are going to deny yourself your legitimate responsibility as a citizen, and then you come and cry foul and say, look, a bad government is in power, then you can only have yourself to blame. Everybody that votes in Nigeria walks to his or her polling booth. So it has nothing to do with movement of vehicles. You're not even allowed to go beyond your polling area. So it can't be an excuse for anybody to say we don't have money. I'm not excusing the fact that we're not going through pain. Now I'm going through pain.
I was coming to that.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying that, and I'm also of the opinion that the central bank can do a little more.
That's what
we
I
can
was
increase further the volume of cash, because I tried to do a rough of the back of the envelope analysis. The deputy governor of central bank had said that they printed 500 million notes of the new currencies. And I said, okay, what could be the proportion of their printing? I said, okay, if they printed 200 million notes of the 1,000 Naira notes and did another 200 million of the 500 Naira notes, okay, and then do 100 million of the 200 Naira notes, making it the 500 million he said they ordered and printed, then they would have printed about 320 billion Naira. Remember that the central bank governor, in making the announcement on the redesign of the currency, had said that we had 3.23 trillion Naira of currency in circulation, out of which 2.7 trillion was outside the banking system. It was only 500 billion that was within the banking system. So if they printed 320 billion, they would have printed, I'm just doing a back of the envelope, because he didn't say exactly how much, but I'm just doing a rough estimate. They would have printed more than 80%, I mean more than 60% of the volume of cash that was actually being used in this economy without anybody complaining of cash shortage.
So what you're saying now is that the central bank should bring out more supply of the Naira.
So if the central bank has printed, it's just the central bank governor has not come out to tell us how much they have pushed out. If they push out 320 billion and we are still having this shortage, then something else is going on.
Okay, now let me take it from what you said, which I think is very important, because at the end of the day right now, everyone is calling on this, that the central bank needs to fix this. And you think that the central bank should fix this. Yes. How should they fix that? By perhaps the governor coming out to say, this is how much we've printed. What should be done to the banks? Should the Central Bank of Nigeria be naming and shaming, and perhaps with the police or EFCC and ICPC, be prosecuting the banks that are supposedly profiteering from this right now? Okay. But that will have to come from, we have to know how much each branch or each bank has been given.
Yes. So back to what I was saying. Like I said, what I did was just a commonsensical estimation. So if really, and we have now about 320 billion Naira in an economy that was thriving without any hitch on 500 billion, that means the central bank has brought in about over 60% of what?
Without any hitch in cash circulation.
Yes.
But affecting monetary policy.
No, you see, yes, well, yeah. Monetary policy according to the central bank.
But yes, but affecting monetary policy.
So what I'm looking at is this. If they have printed about 320 billion, the question is, have they pushed down that 320 billion into the system? If they have, we shouldn't be having the difficulties we're having. So if we're having those difficulties, it simply means that every code that was pushed out, there were people buying it up for election purpose. So we need to also extend our logic to that extent. But then if they have pushed out maybe 50 billion, they may need to put more in the system. And because you really need some level of cash for the effective commercial engagement of citizens. And one of the recommendations I have for them is that, look, for instance, the over-the-counter payment, the election is just about 3 weeks away. So you can actually say, instead of limiting the withdrawals at the ATMs to 20,000 Naira a day, and withdrawals over the counter at 20,000 Naira a day, you can also upscale that to 100,000 Naira one-off.
A day at the ATMs?
A week, 100,000 Naira a week.
At the ATMs?
At any of the channels. Any of the channels. Because you can actually slot your this in and collect up to 100,000 Naira at an ATM machine. So the implication is this. If you have a maximum withdrawal per week of 100,000, whether you want to take it once or want to take it 3 times.
But the policy existing now from the banking supervision
is 500,000 Naira
a week? A month.
A month. It's 500,000
100,000 Naira a week.
Yes.
So it depends on how the banks
yes,
regulate it, because the banks have also sent emails to their customers. It depends on how they regulate it.
Yes. So my take is this: why don't we allow the bank? Of course, the issue is that you can only withdraw 20,000 naira a day, which amounts to 100,000 naira a week at most, because you're not going to go 5-7 times a day a week.
So what you're saying is that increase the volume
yes.
that people can take at the ATMs.
You're going to limit the number of people coming back
to get money every day.
And then you still have a hang on how much money that is pushed out. And I can also tell you that 80% of the people who go to ATM to make withdrawal do not have 500,000 naira in their account.
Yeah. According to NDIC,
they don't even have 200,000 in their account. No. So they're not going to come and withdraw 100,000 naira. And then for those who are withdrawing 100,000 naira, because each person who comes to withdraw from your account, then you are going to keep track of who is holding the notes. But the most importantly, you have 2 weeks effectively to the election. So even if people come back and withdraw 100,000 this week and 100,000 next week, they're going to end up with 200,000 naira before the election. I don't think that's the kind of money that we are worried about in terms of compromising the electoral process. So they can kind of loosen the tightness of cash supply without necessarily compromising the overarching objective of the central bank and the federal government to make sure that this coming election is not compromised by unethical politicians who are bent on buying the conscience of Nigerians just because they have they will have weaponized poverty.
Now let's take a look at another dimension which came up on Monday. The Federal Capital Territory (FCT) High Court restraining President Buhari, governor of the central bank, and 27 commercial banks from suspending the Naira redesign. We also saw the conference of political parties, I think, coming out yesterday with a press conference. What else again? I think there was a protest too at the headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I heard you clearly.
By those who say the central bank should not shift.
Yes, that is support. What is your reading of all this? Let's bring in a bit of political economy into it, which you started with anyway, in terms of there's a political angle to it. But the Apex Bank is saying, get us out of politics. We are not interested in your politics. This is inhibiting our monetary policy objectives, and we need to do it. You can't have that cash out of the system, so we need to draw everything in and bring back again. But with what you've seen in the last few days, how do you sum all this up? Meanwhile, there's a political party which the president belongs to crying foul, as it were. Other political parties, the conference and all of that, okay, we support you guys, don't. What's your reading of all this? And just oppose it with the hardships that Nigerians are actually feeling at this time. Because this is one policy that you've seen many politicians, the big men, come out to say, no, shift to this date. And I haven't seen politicians be so united on an issue such as on another issue.
It's a nice, with all due respect to our Nigerian politicians, we have had a political culture that has encouraged impunity, that has encouraged breach of this public interest, where it's being driven by the money banks, or what you may call the political, what do they call them, the kingmakers. And that process is highly based on compromising the electorate, or compromising even the umpire. We've heard repeatedly that people give money to INEC, people give money to police, people give money to all this and that to ensure that the electoral victory is yes, or that the results are changed, or somehow, in effect, that the result is manipulated. It doesn't reflect the interest or the outcome of voting at the polling units. We have heard too many of this. And we've also known that politicians in their own warped strategy include as a critical component of their strategy to compromise the electorate. I was talking to a politician and said, how does this work? And he told me, you have polling agents, you have the polling agents of the opposition party, you have police, you have an INEC official, you have, he mentioned about 6 or so of such interests at the polling unit. And they say you have to, for them as politicians, you have to mark out some amount of money for each of these. And if you can also give money to the agents of your opposition party, particularly if the opposition party is not strong in that area. So that at the end of the polling, after the polling, they will look at what is the number of registered voters in this polling booth. What was the actual polling? They now allocate whatever is not voted, polled, to you based on the fact that you have compromised everybody, which is what BVAS is there to thwart. So, and given that, initially the politicians didn't want, unfortunately, I don't know how God blindfolded them and they approved the BVAS thing. So now, they are now trying to push back. We've heard comments from political leaders of the ruling party talk about cast aspersion on the BVAS. And also, they've told us that it has not been tested, they're not sure it will work. They've told us, when the electoral act was being passed, that there was no coverage of network in their localities. Even if, when I know that some of the localities have 4G network. They've said that to us. All because if they didn't want this to be implemented. So what was the next option of them? They have begun to stack up money in preparation because they know that they can't go to the banks a few weeks to the election. So they have begun to stack up money. I saw something on Twitter as I was coming here of, I don't know how true it is, but on the Twitter, the person was saying his friend, who is a House of Rep member, was complaining that he had kept 238 million naira, and he doesn't know how to take it back to the bank, and they cannot use it for the election. I don't know, like I said, it sounds something that somebody posted on Twitter. But the fact of the matter is that we all know, you and I, and the politicians know, that many of them had dug up a lot of liquidity ahead of the election.
Okay, now.
So I'm coming. Yeah. So the reason why they are fighting it, why you're having conference of the, why you're having some state government going to court to compel central bank to reverse a policy. And I say, look, sometimes what we play here is, it beggars logic. How can you go to a Supreme Court to give a judgment to stop a man from doing his primary job?
Now, we just have 2 minutes to the end, and I want to bring in this concerning the super agents and how you think the central bank can actually work with super agents across the country. Some people have said it's not enough. In fact, I got a message from a colleague yesterday telling me that, okay, that the CBN should look at even deploying more super agents across perhaps FCT and other places to help with the cash circulation. What other recommendation would you give to the Central Bank of Nigeria in terms of this? And should they wield the big stick against the banks moving forward, just very quickly, so that this situation can be abated before the elections?
Nancy.
Chief Chukwu.
The payment architecture we have in the country was sufficient to dispense old Naira notes before the introduction of the new redesign notes. It is not because our payment architecture has collapsed. And I have said here, let the central bank this evening give instructions to allow over-the-counter payment up to 100,000 naira a week, or withdrawal of 100,000 naira from POS terminal. We'll have enough dispersed payment platforms.
The queue will not be too much.
It will not be there. It will vanish in 2 days. It's not a matter of deploying more super agents. That's it's an ad hoc fire service approach. We can solve this problem today. And like I said, even the amount of money that will go out, central bank should know how much money has gone out. Okay? And if we don't have up to 320 billion have gone out, if it hasn't gone out, based on my estimate that they may have printed 320 billion, then let's push it further. The money that will be released if you have a limit withdrawal of 100,000 naira in the next 2 weeks will be inconsequential as to compromise the election, and we'll solve this problem.
Thank you very much, Chief Chukwu.
Chief Nancy.
Thank you very much for your insights today. But of course, one thing remains clear, that we can't continue to see these long queues for a very long time. So the CBN has got to fix it, and they really have got the power to be able to fix it. Thank you for your insights again. All right, I've been speaking with Johnson Chukwu, who is the Group Managing Director at Carry Asset Management. We've been looking at the Naira redesign policy and the furore around it. I hope you don't still have the old Naira. You go deposit it at your banks. You have about a few more days to the deadline. I'll see you all again next time. I am Nancy Najibi, the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. Bye now.